I used to carry every possible lure, an endless search for the magic bait and color. My boat a mess, thousands of dollars wasted at tackle stores. Now, 90% of the time I'm throwing just 7 baits. These cover everything: deep, shallow, power, and finesse. And they made me a more consistent angler.
So I made a conscious decision to simplify for 2 big reasons: confidence and efficiency. These are all long-term proven baits. They help me cover water fast, help me find fish, and once I do find them, I know I can catch them without second guessing myself on every single cast. I'm retying less, I'm more confident, and I'm not agonizing over what lure to throw. This video is the big picture: what I carry and why. The core 7 baits that do 90% of my damage. And then in the follow-up videos, I'll break down each one in great detail for you. All right, let's start off with the essential 3. And these 3 alone, I probably catch 50 or 60% of my fish on. I can fish them shallow or deep, around cover, and in open water. They work in all situations. Let's start off with the go-to, the bladed jig or the slobber knocker. I'll tell you what, this thing, I used to throw a lot of square bills, a lot of spinnerbaits and stuff. Anymore, the bladed jig, I can put it back in those spots that skip, kind of calls fish in. I can land it in anywhere. It comes through cover pretty well, comes through grass great. This is my go-to search and destroy bait, the bladed jig. Now, speaking of jigs, number 2 is actually a jig. And this can be a flipping jig or a swim jig, depending on what I'm around. But the thing about the jig is I can get this into tight spots. So when there's more cover, I go to a jig. The neat thing about it, I can fish it vertically in the cover, and then I can also swim it back. Depending on what I'm doing, I'm gonna switch up my jig and my trailer a little bit, but I can put this anywhere, and a jig is legendary for catching big fish. So this is definitely number 2. And then speaking of tight spots, nothing gets into tight spots and fishes them more efficiently than a Texas rig. You can see here, the old Texas rig, it's streamlined. When I really have to put it tight into cover, nothing goes in there, wood or grass, brush piles, you name it, nothing like a Texas rig. This one is when I think they're round targets. I can fish it as deep or as shallow as I want. I can fish it really slow when I have to put it in there. Those are my top 3. These always get it done. Now, number 4, this one used to be in the top 3, and I'll tell you what, for a long part of the year it is. Anytime the water's cool, a crankbait is a key player. I can cover water with it. I can't put it into cover quite as well, but I can deflect off grass and wood and make them bite. And in the summertime, you can see like it is now, I can put a deeper lip on it, and it's a player out deep. But I'll tell you what, in the cool and cold seasons, pre-spawn, back through winter, back into fall, before that, those cool months, a crankbait is a key player. It can look like a bluegill or a baitfish or a crawdad. Crankbait's definitely in the list, and there are just times when they won't eat the bladed jig, spinnerbaits, other stuff. The crankbait, just when it deflects off cover, can trigger strikes. It's definitely a key player. Now, the list, you probably could have guessed it so far, but we're going to start to mix it up a little bit, and especially I think number 7 you might not see coming. But this one's a key one to me, and you might not have it on your list, but this is a jerk shad. It's a soft plastic jerk bait. The minnow style here, I'll tell you what, this thing is my bird dog. I can fish it really slow and let it slow fall. That's great when it's a tough bite. But I can bird dog topwater fish. I can scoot this across the top. I can reel it really fast and twitch it. I'll signal if there's topwater fish. I can do in the same areas where there's frogfish around there. I can scoot it across the top. It's totally weedless, so I can put it into cover where a topwater, I can't do that. And this also shows me if they're on a jerkbait bite, if they're kind of slow, if they, you know, the bladed jig and the crankbait, they won't quite eat them. I know that if I throw this in here and I let it just slowly fall and I don't get bit, they're probably just not around. And like I said, if they're chasing bait or if they're up on top, I can get them that way. I work this faster than most people. This is kind of finesse, but it's power finesse. And then speaking of finesse, everybody's going to have this on their list, where 15 years ago nobody would, but either a wacky or Nico rig. I have it on a spinning rod, obviously. I'll tell you what, just depending if, you know, I use the Nico when I want a little bit deeper and a little bit more targeted, wacky when I want just a super slow fall, and that's the key. But the thing about this, I'm usually not looking for fish with this, but it's gonna, again, I'm gonna verify. This is my big time finesse. I'm gonna verify if I think there's fish in an area and there should be ones around there. Maybe the jig's too fast. Maybe I caught them there yesterday and I wanna know if they're still there. The Nico and the wacky is gonna tell me that. I can fish it slow, but very targeted. I'm gonna fish around cover. And then in the spring, around the spawn, I'll tell you what, there's plenty of times that all the other stuff won't work. You have to put this down on a bed, blind bed fishing, just casting around, work it really slow where you won't get anything else. I'm gonna try to target this around cover. not lead with this, but it's essential to have this in your top 7. So here's a little bit of change up for you. This one probably wasn't in many people's top 7 in years past, or top 15 for a lot of guys, and then some guys, it would be their top 1. They'd only fish it. But I'll tell you what, this has become a huge player for me now. And I don't throw a ton of casts with it, but I'm always looking to pick it up. If you look at my videos, scroll back and watch some of my old ones, this thing is always on the deck. It's a Swimbait. This one happens to be a Nessie, but I throw a lot of different versions of it. But you want to have a Swimbait as a cleanup bait if you've caught them well on a spot. Say you have a deep spot, a shallow hump, pre-spawn, a point or something, a grass tip where they're at. If you've caught several fish off there, throwing in a Swimbait might catch the biggest one of the day. And if there's isolated cover, sometimes they see tons of wacky worms that slow fall. You pitch in there with the jig and the Texas rig, they won't eat it. One cast, I don't care how many other baits you've thrown it there, when you clean up, all of a sudden, you'll be surprised with that Swimbait. Like I said, you're often going to get the biggest bite of the day. It might only be 1 bite per day, but I don't throw it all the time. I have it handy on the deck. I pick this thing up, I throw it in there, and a lot of times this gets me a kicker, and on a good day, you'll catch a number of good fish where I put this other stuff down, and when I see key targets and I know there's one there, I lead with the Swimbait because I know I'm going to catch the big one out of there. So I got back to the house and I obviously remembered 2 things. One, this is obviously a largemouth list. Spotted bass, smallmouth be totally different. The other thing is, a lot of you are going to say, well, all you need is live scope, all you need is a jig head minnow and a jerkbait. And you're right. A couple of my baits will work too, but you know, those are the keys. But I'll tell you what, the guys that do so well with it, what is the secret of it? They get to lock in a jig head minnow or a jerkbait, or maybe 2 of them, and that's it. They lock that in their hand, single focus, there's nothing else to their mind, and they keep fishing until they find the fish, the winning fish, the big ones, whatever. They don't have that thing in their mind. That's kind of my whole point. Even if you don't use live scope, like what I'm talking about, shallow, just regular old fishing, old school fishing, the simplification helps. You get the same benefit, the same reason that live scope works so well for the guys that are 100% focused on it. All right, so those are the 7 I can't leave home without. But anytime I'm in my boat, I always have 3 in the rod locker ready to go. These are situational, but these are ones that when it arises that situation, I want to be able to pull these out and throw them really quickly. The first one's a punch rod, and then the second and third, they're 2 topwaters. I'll have some sort of a walking or chopo, some sort of a topwater buzzbait or something, and a frog. The punch rod, I think that explains itself. That's something that you don't want to have to tie that stuff up, but I don't know how many times you'll see a tiny little mat or something. If you find those, or the back of one creek or something, some leaves have pulled up, there's one little tree that has grass in it. If you make that one pitch, you can dig out that rod quick and punch. A lot of times, like that Swimbait, it's the same thing. You'll catch bonus big fish. I'm not looking for that bite all the time, but I'm always looking for that opportunistic extra bite with that. And then the topwater and the frog, again, that's situational. If I find really thick stuff during the middle of the day, I'm going to throw that frog out there some, put it under some trees, see if that's going. I'm always going to try that if the water's up, if there's really thick cover. And then early and late, it's good to have that topwater there, or if they come schooling, anytime it's the warmer months of the year, I'm going to have some sort of topwater handy, ready to go. If I'm seeing a lot of surface activity, or it's early or late, I'm going to pop that out and try to mix it in. Now, a couple that I didn't put on my list that a lot of people would, and I could totally take your argument that you could add it in. A spinnerbait is one, a drop shot is the other. You know, the spinnerbait, I love it when it's muddy water, it's shad spawn and stuff. I've caught tons on it, slow rolling it. The thing is, I feel like I can do most all that stuff anymore with the bladed jig. I can skip the bladed jig better. I can put it back in there. That skittering across the surface, I think that a lot of times that attracts the attention of a bass, and the second it stops, it's like a fleeing bait fish. I think that's a bonus. The other thing about the bladed jig, if I want to do stop and go, I've caught plenty on the spinnerbait doing that, bumping into stuff, and it's pretty weedless. The nice thing is, if I put some sort of a jig trailer on the back of that slobber knocker, I can almost fish it like a jig too. So I feel like I can flip it to a stump, let it go to the bottom, maybe get that jig bite, and then reel it. The other one being the drop shot, hey, I mean, that thing works great too. Again, I can't pitch a drop shot near as accurately as I can a Texas rig, or skip in that wacky, general, or the Nico rig. So the drop shot, if I'm really into a Texas rig bite, a drop bite, something like that, and they're kind of fussy around the springtime especially, I'm definitely going to try the drop shot. That's something when I'm going to dial in. You could put those on your list, but again, instead of me worrying about that, the few extra bites, I'll wait for those. If I'm really dialed in on a shad spawn or something, and I think that maybe I need to try it, I've fished the same spot a couple days, I'll try those. but I'm trying to keep my head clear, and these ones are going to cover it most of the time. So this video is just the start. In the following ones, I'm going to break each of these down, and for the very first one, I'm going to dive into soft plastics. That's the thing that takes up so much space in our boat, so many colors, all these varieties. For my system to really work, you need a simplified soft plastics program. What I do is have just a handful of baits that I can use as jig trailers on a Texas rig, on the back of a bladed jig. I can use them for everything in only a few colors. So with a handful of baits, you can cover all these options. That's where you can really simplify. So if you're sick of wasting a bunch of money on baits, your boat and tackle box are a mess, and you have a headache all the time because you can't decide what to throw, subscribe and follow along, or check out the rest of the playlist, and I'll get into each of these different categories in more detail and help you simplify. Hopefully catch a few more while you're doing it.